The massive crystal dome of Zentara Prime gleamed under the light of 3 suns as beings from across the galaxy gathered for the most routine of proceedings. Ambassador Jiwoo Kim walked through the towering halls, her footsteps echoing against walls that had witnessed 1,000 such meetings. She carried a simple datapad containing Earth's application for membership in the Galactic Council, but the weight of it felt heavier than the hope of an entire species. The council chamber stretched before her like a cathedral of arrogance. 12 distinct species sat in their designated areas, each representing civilizations that had ruled the stars for millennia. Their forms were as varied as their contempt was uniform. The Vorthok delegate existed as pure energy, its form crackling with barely contained power. The Kalari representative manipulated reality itself with casual thoughts, bending light around its crystalline body. The ancient Zephyrian sat motionless, cybernetic implants glowing with the accumulated wisdom of 10,000 years of life. Jiwoo had studied each species extensively during her journey to this moment. The Vorthok had transcended physical form 3,000 years ago, becoming beings of pure energy who could traverse space without ships. The Kalari had unlocked the secrets of quantum manipulation, able to fold space and time to their will. The Zephyrians had defeated death itself, their consciousness transferred through mechanical bodies that could last forever. Each species viewed their own evolution as proof of their superiority. Admiral Kethfer of the Hegemony Coalition stood to address the assembly. His species, the Drachnari, had been the first to achieve faster-than-light travel and had appointed themselves as the galaxy's unofficial leaders. His forearms gestured dismissively as he began to speak. "We gather today to review the application of a species calling itself humanity," Kethfer announced, his voice carrying across the chamber with practiced authority. "They inhabit a small system on the Outer Rim, recently discovered by our exploration vessels." The Vorthok delegate's energy form flickered with what might have been amusement. Carbon-based primitives, it communicated through electromagnetic pulses that translated into dismissive laughter. "They still burn chemical fuels to escape their gravity well. Their technology is crude beyond measure." Gu watched the display with growing understanding. These beings had forgotten what it meant to struggle. They had lived in luxury for so long that they could not comprehend the drive that came from hardship. They saw humanity's use of chemical rockets as primitive, not recognizing the ingenuity required to reach space with limited resources. The Zephyrian delegate finally stirred, its ancient voice carrying the weight of millennia. "Their individual lifespans are measured in mere decades," it observed with clinical detachment. "They reproduce biologically, die of natural causes, and pass knowledge through primitive learning methods. By our standards, they barely qualify." As sentient, the Kalari representative bent space around itself, creating a small demonstration of its power. Their faster-than-light capability is functional but rudimentary. They use brute force methods, where we employ elegant manipulation of quantum fields. Their vessels are massive, inefficient constructs that require significant energy expenditure. Admiral Kethper nodded approvingly at each criticism. Indeed, their technological development follows patterns we abandoned centuries ago. More concerning is their social structure. Our intelligence reports indicate their homeworld is divided into competing nation-states that engage in regular warfare. They have not achieved the unity necessary for galactic civilization. Giwu felt a spark of anger at this particular criticism. Yes, Earth had conflicts, but those conflicts had also driven innovation, cooperation, and the development of technologies that these aliens took for granted. Humanity had learned to work together despite their differences, forging alliances and sharing knowledge across cultural boundaries. The very diversity these aliens criticized had made humans adaptable and resourceful. The Thraxian delegates, a species known for their industrial might, added its voice to the chorus of dismissal. Their manufacturing capabilities are primitive. They still rely on planetary-based production facilities and have not achieved the orbital infrastructure necessary for true spacefaring civilization. One by one, each species found reasons to reject humanity's application. The Nexari criticized human mathematics as limited. The Vorkali dismissed human science as incomplete. The ethereal collective questioned whether humans possessed sufficient intelligence for galactic society. Each criticism revealed not human inadequacy, but alien complacency. G-Wu realized that these species had become so advanced that they had forgotten the value of struggle, of adaptation, of the drive to overcome limitations. They had reached the peak of their evolution and had grown stagnant, measuring all progress against their own achievements without recognizing that different paths might lead to different strengths. The vote was inevitable. 12 voices unanimously rejected humanity's application for membership. They would not even grant observer status. It's a minimal recognition that would have allowed human representatives to attend future meetings as silent witnesses. Ambassador Kim stood to address the council one final time. She had prepared elaborate arguments, detailed presentations about human achievements, and carefully crafted appeals to their sense of fairness. Instead, she spoke from the heart. The people of Earth sought only peaceful cooperation with the galactic community, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the vast chamber. We hope to learn from your wisdom and contribute our own perspectives to the greater good of all species. I hope this decision doesn't prove regrettable. Her words prompted another round of alien laughter, the sound echoing off the crystal walls like breaking glass. The Vorthok's energy form pulsed with amusement. The Kaleri bent light around itself in what passed for mirth among its kind. Even the ancient Zephyrian allowed its mechanical features to shift into what might have been a smile, as Ji-Woo gathered her materials and prepared to leave. She noticed something that the aliens had missed. Their laughter was hollow, their amusement forced. Deep down, perhaps some part of them recognized that they had just made a terrible mistake, but their arrogance was too deeply rooted to allow for such doubts. The human delegation departed Zentara Prime that day, dismissed as harmless primitives who would never trouble the galaxy again. The great powers returned to their ancient games of politics and territory, completely forgetting about the rejected application from the small blue world on the outer rim. They had no idea that humanity had been listening to every word, learning from every dismissal, and preparing for the future that would prove their greatest. Mistake had been underestimating the species that refused to accept defeat. The moon's surface looked peaceful from Earth, but beneath its gray dust lay humanity's greatest secret. Dr. Hyansu Park walked through corridors carved deep into Luna's rock, past laboratories where the future of human survival was being written. The Terran Defense Initiative had grown from a small research project into something much larger. It's much more dangerous. 3 years had passed since the humiliation at Zentara Prime. The galaxy had moved on, great alien powers returning to their comfortable routines of trade and politics. They had dismissed humanity so completely that they never bothered to check what the rejected species might be doing. This proved to be their first mistake. Park stopped at a reinforced window. Overlooking the main construction bay, hundreds of human workers moved like ants across the cavern floor, assembling vessels that looked nothing like the crude chemical rockets the aliens had mocked. These ships were sleek, dark, and designed for one purpose: war. "Sir, we have the latest report from the outer system," said his assistant, handing him a data tablet. The numbers were impressive. What had started as a few dozen patrol ships had grown into a fleet of thousands, all hidden in the asteroid belts and dark spaces between planets, where alien sensors would never think to look. Dr. Sujin Lee emerged from her laboratory, her eyes bright with the excitement of discovery. She had been working with salvaged alien technology for months, pieces recovered from what the galaxy believed were random pirate attacks. In reality, these were carefully planned operations designed to capture samples of alien equipment. "Made another breakthrough," she announced, holding up a small device that hummed with energy. "This is a Vorthok power core. We've learned to replicate their energy matrices, but with a crucial difference. We can control the frequency output." The implications were staggering. The Vorthok had evolved beyond physical form, becoming beings of pure energy. They considered themselves untouchable, immortal, beyond the reach of physical weapons. But energy could be disrupted, frequencies could be jammed, and their greatest strength could become their greatest weakness. Dr. Minho Choi joined them from his xenobiology lab, carrying samples that would have terrified the aliens if they knew. Humans possess them. I've completed the analysis of all 12 species, he reported. Each one has adapted so completely to their advanced state that they've created vulnerabilities they don't even recognize. He activated a holographic display showing the internal structure of a Kalari warrior. The Kalari manipulate quantum fields through neural implants connected directly to their brainstems. The process requires perfect concentration and mental focus. Introduce chaos, overwhelming sensory input, or simple, loud noises at the right frequency, and their quantum abilities shut down completely. The display shifted to show a Zephyrian, its mechanical body glowing with artificial life. The Zephyrians achieved immortality by transferring their consciousness into cybernetic bodies. But consciousness requires data transfer, and data can be corrupted. Their neural implants use quantum encryption, but we found ways to introduce viruses into their systems. Park nodded grimly. The aliens had become so advanced that they had forgotten the basic principles of warfare. They had no backup systems, no redundancies, no preparations for the possibility that their technology might fail. They had lived in peace for so long that they had lost the paranoia that kept species alive. Intelligence operative Junyon Han materialized from the shadows, a skill he had perfected during his years of infiltration. His face was changed by cosmetic surgery, his DNA altered by experimental techniques that allowed him to pass for several different alien species. He'd walked among the galaxy's greatest powers, and they had never suspected that a primitive human moved through there. Most secure facilities? The situation is even better than we hoped, Han reported, his voice carrying the confidence of someone who had seen the enemy's weakness firsthand. They're not just complacent, they're actively incompetent. Their military forces exist primarily for show. Their officers have never fought a real battle. Their tactics are theoretical, studied from historical records rather than practical experience. He produced a data chip containing intelligence that had taken months to gather. The Drachnary maintain a fleet of 10,000 vessels, but most are centuries old and used mainly for ceremonial purposes. The Vorthok energy collectives have no physical defenses because they believe energy beings cannot be harmed. The Kalari quantum ships are marvels of engineering, but they require specially trained crews who take decades to properly train. The most damning intelligence concerned the aliens' communication networks. They had grown so confident in their superiority that they barely bothered to encrypt their transmissions. Han had been able to map their entire command structure, identify their key leaders, and pinpoint the locations of their most important facilities. They haven't fought a war in over 3 centuries, Han continued. The younger generations don't even understand what warfare means. They see it as a primitive concept that advanced species have evolved beyond. They have no idea how to respond to an enemy that doesn't follow their rules. Dr. Park looked around at his team, at the dedicated humans who had spent 3 years preparing for this moment. They had been dismissed as primitives, rejected as unworthy of galactic civilization. But they had taken that rejection and transformed it into something the aliens could never have imagined. Motivation? The construction bay hummed with activity. As the final ships of the Sol Defense Fleet neared completion, each vessel incorporated lessons learned from alien technology, but improved with human engineering and designed for human tactics. They were faster than alien ships, more maneuverable, and equipped with weapons that exploited the specific weaknesses of each species. Park activated the main communication system, his voice carrying 2 hidden facilities throughout the solar system. All department heads report to the command center. It's time to begin the final phase. As his team assembled, Park felt a moment of doubt. They were about to challenge civilizations that had ruled the galaxy for millennia. But then he remembered the laughter in the council chamber, the dismissive contempt in alien voices, and the assumption that humanity would never be a threat. The aliens had made a fatal error. They had given humanity time to prepare, motivation to excel, and the element of surprise. They would learn what happened. When a species that had been forged in the fires of constant conflict decided to go to war, the attack began exactly as planned. across 17 star systems. At the moment when Earth's clock struck 8 in the morning, humanity announced its presence to the galaxy in the most direct way possible. But the aliens would not realize what had happened until it was far too late. Captain Yoonji Nam watched her instruments as the stealth destroyer, Soul's Pride, dropped out of hyperspace near the Vorthok processing station. The massive energy structure hung in space like a crystalline spiderweb, collecting and distributing power to dozens of nearby worlds. It was beautiful, ancient, and completely undefended. Target acquired, reported her weapons officer. Electromagnetic. Pulse cannon is charged and ready. Fire when ready, Nam commanded, her voice steady despite the magnitude of what they were about to do. This single shot would announce to the galaxy that humanity had not forgotten the insults thrown at them. 3 years ago, the pulse cannon fired, sending a carefully tuned electromagnetic wave toward the Vorthok station. The aliens had built their energy matrices to be perfect, efficient, and completely vulnerable to the right frequency. The wave hit the station and spread through its structure. Like lightning through a metal rod, the lights went out all at once. The beautiful energy patterns that had flowed through the station for centuries simply stopped. Emergency systems tried to activate, but they too were overwhelmed by the electromagnetic interference. Within minutes, the most important power hub in the sector had gone completely dark. Jump complete. Moving to next target, Nam reported as her ship slipped back into hyperspace. Behind them, the Vorthok station hung silent and dead in space. Its energy-based inhabitants trapped in their own facility. Similar scenes played out across the galaxy. The Kalari Quantum Research Facility at Nexus Prime exploded in a perfectly timed sequence as human demolition charges, planted months earlier by infiltrators, detonated simultaneously. The explosion was not random destruction but surgical precision, targeting the specific systems that allowed the Kalari to manipulate quantum fields. Dr. Sujin Lee had spent months studying Kalari technology, learning how their quantum manipulation worked. She had discovered that their entire system depended on quantum entanglement chambers that had to be perfectly aligned. Destroy the alignment, and the entire facility became useless. The explosion sent quantum resonances through the research center, making it impossible for any Kalari to use their powers within 100 kilometers. The Zephyrian Immortality Center on Eternal Prime faced a different kind of attack. Human hackers, led by specialists who had spent years learning alien computer systems, introduced viruses into the facility's neural networks. These were not random computer viruses, but carefully designed programs that targeted the specific way Zephyrian consciousness worked. The immortal beings had transferred their minds into mechanical bodies, believing this made them safe from physical death. But consciousness required data, and data could be corrupted. The viruses spread through the facility's systems like a plague, causing immortal minds to fragment and fail. For the first time in millennia, Zephyrians began to die. Admiral Kethfer stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching reports flood in from across the galaxy. At first, he dismissed them as minor incidents. Pirates occasionally attacked isolated facilities, and even the most advanced civilizations occasionally experienced technical failures. Sir, we're receiving distress signals from 17 different systems, reported his communications officer, while reporting simultaneous attacks on critical infrastructure. Kethfer's forearms moved dismissively. It's probably coordinated pirate activity. Deploy patrol fleets to investigate these minor incidents. Whatever ragtag group is responsible will be crushed quickly. The Admiral's confidence was shared throughout the Galactic Council. They had ruled the galaxy for so long that they could not imagine a threat they could not handle. Their patrol fleets were equipped with the most advanced technology available, crewed by officers from the most sophisticated civilizations in known space. Any enemy foolish enough to attack them would be destroyed within hours. The patrol fleets never returned, Captain Minsu Park commanded. A human wolf pack consisting of 5 stealth ships hidden in the asteroid field near Kepler Station. When the Drachnary patrol fleet arrived to investigate the minor incident, they found what appeared to be empty space. Their sensors detected nothing unusual. Their scanners showed no signs of hostile activity. Spread out and search the area, commanded the Drachnary fleet captain. Whatever attacked the station must have left some trace. The aliens made their first tactical error by dividing their forces. The human wolf pack had been waiting for exactly this mistake. Park's ships had been hidden among the asteroids for hours, their stealth systems making them invisible to alien sensors. When the enemy ships separated, each human vessel targeted an isolated alien craft. All ships, engage targets, Park commanded. Hit them hard and fast. The attacks came from every direction at once. Human weapons, designed specifically to exploit alien weaknesses, tore through shields and armor that had been built to impress rather than protect. The Drachnary ships were marvels of engineering, but they had never been tested in real combat. Enemy vessels are advanced, but their crews are inexperienced, Park reported back to Admiral Dong Hyeon Ko. They rely entirely on superior technology, not tactical skill. They're sitting ducks. The pattern repeated across the galaxy. Found themselves facing an enemy they could not see, could not predict, and could not defeat. Human tactics, developed through centuries of warfare, proved devastatingly effective against aliens who had forgotten what real fighting looked like. Each destroyed alien vessel provided more technology, more intelligence, and more proof that the galactic powers were not the invincible force they believed themselves to be. Human engineers studied the wreckage, learning how to build better weapons and stronger defenses. Intelligence officers downloaded alien databases, revealing the locations of more targets and the weaknesses of more enemies. As the hours passed, the scope of the disaster became clear to the Galactic Council. Star systems that had been connected to the galactic network for centuries suddenly went silent. Trade routes that had operated safely for millennia became death traps where alien ships simply disappeared. Communication networks that had never failed began reporting system-wide failures. Panic spread through the council chambers as the aliens realized they faced something entirely outside their experience. They still did not know who their enemy was, but they were beginning to understand that their comfortable, peaceful galaxy was under attack by someone who played by very different rules. The war had begun, and humanity had drawn first blood. Cathara had stood unconquered for 2,000 years. The fortress world hung in space like a metal moon, its surface covered with weapon platforms and shield generators that had never been tested in real battle. Every alien species knew the legend of Cathara, the world that could not fall, the ultimate symbol of galactic military might. General Tae Min Lee studied the fortress through his ship's view screen, watching the ancient defenses track his approaching fleet. The aliens had built Cathara to be perfect, an impregnable stronghold that would intimidate any enemy into surrender. But they had made one crucial mistake. They had never actually fought a war. "Begin the assault," Lee commanded, his voice carrying to 100 human ships spread across the system. "Remember, we're not here to destroy the world. We're here to prove a point." The battle for Cathara lasted 18 hours. The fortress world's defenses were impressive, firing energy beams that could destroy entire fleets. But the human ships moved like ghosts, using tactics the aliens had never seen before. They attacked from unexpected angles, used the fortress's own weapons against it, struck at weak points that the builders had never considered. When the shields finally fell, human troops poured onto the surface like a tide. The alien defenders fought bravely, but they were fighting an enemy that had been born in warfare. Every human soldier had studied the weaknesses of each alien species, knew how to exploit their overconfidence, and understood that this battle would determine the fate of the galaxy. Colonel Hyjin Park led the assault on the fortress's communications center. The aliens had never imagined that anyone could penetrate their defenses, so they had placed their most important systems in the most obvious locations. Park's cyber warfare specialists plugged into the galactic communication network and began broadcasting a message that would change everything. The face of Admiral Ji-woo Kim appeared on screens across 1,000 worlds. She was no longer the diplomatic ambassador who had been humiliated 3 years ago. Now she wore the uniform of the Terran Navy, her expression cold and determined. 3 years ago, you dismissed us as primitives, her voice echoed from every communication device in the galaxy. You laughed at our crude technology, mocked our short lifespans, and rejected our offer of peaceful cooperation. You underestimated our resolve, our ingenuity, our capacity for warfare. Now, you face the consequences of your arrogance. The message continued as images of human victories played across alien screens. Vorthok energy stations going dark Kaleri. Quantum facilities exploding, Zephyrian immortality centers failing. Each scene showed the systematic destruction of everything the galactic powers had built their superiority upon. "This is Admiral Ji-Woo Kim of the Terran Navy," the message concluded. "The age of your dominance is over. The age of humanity has begun." The galaxy reacted with shock and terror. The species that had been dismissed as harmless primitives had not only survived their rejection, but had turned it into motivation for conquest. The great powers scrambled to mobilize their fleets, but centuries of peace had made them weak and unprepared. The Draconary Empire assembled its ceremonial fleet, got magnificent ships that had been built for parades and diplomatic missions. They were beautiful, impressive, and completely useless in actual combat. Human wolf packs tore through them like sharks through a school of fish, their advanced sensors and weapon systems proving worthless against enemies who fought with cunning instead of technology. The Vorthok Collective tried to mount a defense, but their energy-based existence had become their greatest weakness. Dr. Sujin, Lee's research team had perfected electromagnetic warfare techniques that could disrupt Vorthok energy matrices from across entire star systems. Beings who had considered themselves immortal and untouchable simply faded away as their energy patterns were scattered by human weapons. Colonel Park's Cyber Warfare Division struck at the heart of Vorthok civilization, introducing viruses into their collective consciousness networks. The aliens had connected their minds to share knowledge and experiences. But this connection became a highway for human-computer viruses. Entire Vorthok collectives went insane as their shared consciousness was corrupted by programs designed to exploit their mental unity. The Kaleri Dominion's quantum ships represented the pinnacle of galactic technology. They could manipulate space and time, travel instantly between stars, and phase through solid matter. But their exotic physics required perfect concentration and mental focus from their crews. Human electromagnetic warfare created sensory chaos that made it impossible for Kaleri pilots to maintain the mental state necessary for quantum manipulation. Ship after ship fell from hyperspace. As their quantum drives failed, Kaleri vessels that had been untouchable suddenly became helpless, their crews overwhelmed by the sensory overload that human weapons created. The most advanced ships in the galaxy became floating debris, their technology useless against enemies who understood that the mind was often more vulnerable than the body. The Zephyrian Empire faced a different kind of horror. For millennia, they had been immortal, their consciousness transferred into mechanical bodies that could last forever. Death had become a forgotten concept, something that happened to primitive species but never to the enlightened Zephyrians. General Lee's ground forces systematically attacked every Zephyrian immortality center they could find. The aliens had built these facilities to be perfect, with no backup systems or redundancies, because they had never imagined they might be attacked. Human hackers introduced viruses into the neural networks that sustain Zephyrian consciousness, causing immortal minds to fragment and fail. For the first time in millennia, Zephyrians began to die. Their leaders, who had lived for thousands of years, suddenly faced mortality. The psychological impact was devastating. A species that had forgotten how to fear death suddenly found themselves terrified of an enemy who could give them what they had thought impossible. One by one, the great powers of the galaxy fell. Not through conquest or occupation, but through the systematic destruction of everything that made them powerful. Humanity did not seek to rule alien worlds or enslave alien populations. They sought something far more devastating, the complete elimination of any threat to human expansion. The aliens had dismissed humans as primitives, but they had created something far more dangerous, a species that combined advanced technology with the savage cunning of survivors. Galaxy would never be the same. The crystal spires of Zentara Prime looked different now. Where once they had gleamed with the arrogance of 10,000 years of galactic dominance, they now bore the black scars of human orbital bombardment. The great council chamber that had echoed with dismissive laughter 3 years ago was silent, filled only with the quiet desperation of the defeated. The surviving alien leaders sat in their designated areas. But their posture had changed completely. The Vorthok representative's energy form flickered weakly, barely maintaining coherence after the electromagnetic attacks that had shattered their collective consciousness. The Kalari delegate sat motionless, its quantum manipulation abilities permanently damaged by human sensory warfare. The ancient Zephyrian leader looked truly mortal for the first time in millennia, its immortality circuits disabled by human cyberviruses. Admiral Kethfer of the Hegemony Coalition stood at the center of the chamber, but he no longer commanded respect. His once proud uniform hung loose on his frame, and his forearms trembled as he spoke into the communication device. The Galactic Council formally requests an audience with the representatives of humanity, he announced, his voice carrying none of its former authority. We seek terms for peace. The irony was lost on no one. The same species that had been rejected, without even observer status, now held the power to decide the fate of every civilization in the galaxy. The ones who had been dismissed as primitives were now the ones granting audiences to their former superiors. Supreme Admiral Ji Woo Kim entered the chamber with measured steps, her presence commanding attention in a way that her diplomatic predecessor had never managed. She was flanked by General Taemin Lee, whose ground forces had systematically dismantled every major alien military installation, and Admiral Donghan Ko, whose fleets had swept through the galaxy like a cleansing fire. The alien delegates struggled to their feet as she approached, a gesture of respect they had never shown before. The Vorthok representative's energy form pulsed with what might have been fear. The Kalari delegate's crystalline body had lost its lustrous glow. The Zephyrian leader's mechanical eyes focused on her with something that looked remarkably like mortal terror. Admiral Kim took her place at the center of the chamber, standing where Ambassador Kim had once stood in humiliation. She carried no datapad this time, no carefully prepared application for membership. Instead, she held a simple document that would reshape the galaxy forever. "You called us primitives," she began, her voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "You dismissed our capacity for growth, for adaptation, for survival. You laughed at our crude technology and mocked our short lifespans. You believe that? Your advanced civilizations made you superior to every other species in the galaxy." The aliens listened in silence, unable to dispute words that had come from their own mouths just a few years earlier. The Drachnary delegate, who had once joked about human warfare, now bore the scars of battles his people had lost. The Thraxian representative, who had criticized human manufacturing, sat in a chair built by human engineers from the wreckage of his own industrial worlds. "While you grew comfortable in your superiority, we learned," Admiral Kim continued. "We prepared. We evolved. You gave us the greatest gift any species could receive: motivation. You showed us exactly what we were fighting against." She activated a holographic display showing the current state of the galaxy. Red zones marked former alien territories now under human control. Green zones showed the restricted areas where alien populations were allowed to exist under human supervision. Blue zones indicated space reserved for future human expansion. "The terms are non-negotiable," Admiral Kim announced, her voice carrying the authority of absolute victory. "Complete demilitarization of all former galactic powers, reparations for the costs of the war, recognition of humanity as the galaxy's dominant species, and most importantly, acknowledgement that the age of your supremacy is over." The Vorthok representative spoke first, its energy form barely coherent. "The collective agrees to permanent energy restrictions. We will limit our power output to levels that cannot threaten human interests. Our processing stations will be monitored by human observers." The Kalari delegate's voice was hollow with defeat. "The Dominion surrenders all quantum manipulation technology. Our research facilities will be dismantled. Quantum ships will be decommissioned. We will return to conventional space travel under human supervision." The Zephyrian leader's mechanical voice carried the weight of a species. Facing mortality for the first time in millennia, the Empire abandons all immortality research. Consciousness transfer technology will be destroyed. We will accept natural lifespans and the limitations of biological existence. One by one, each species signed the surrender documents. The Drachnary Empire agreed to dismantle their ceremonial fleets. The Thraxian Federation surrendered their industrial worlds. The Nexari Collective abandoned their mathematical research. Every civilization that had once claimed superiority now bowed before the species they had dismissed as primitives. Admiral Kim watched the signing with satisfaction, but not cruelty. Humanity had not waged this war for revenge, but for survival. The galaxy had shown them that peaceful coexistence was impossible as long as other species viewed humans as inferior. The only solution was to become so powerful that no one would dare challenge human expansion again. As the former powers completed their surrender, human colony ships were already departing for distant star systems. But humanity's ambitions extended. Beyond even the Milky Way, Captain Yoonji Nam stood on the bridge of the colony ship New Sol, watching the stars of the Andromeda Galaxy grow brighter as her vessel prepared for the ultimate journey. Final systems check complete, reported. Her navigation officer, we're ready for intergalactic jump. Nam nodded, thinking of the message that would be carved into monuments across human space. The lesson that would guide humanity's expansion across the cosmos. Never underestimate the species that learned to split atoms before they learned to split the difference. The jump drive engaged, and humanity took its first step toward conquering not just the galaxy, but the universe itself. The age of galactic civilization had ended. The age of humanity had begun, and it would spread across the stars like wildfire, carrying with it the memory of a species that had been underestimated once and would never allow it to happen again. The crystal spires of Zentara Prime stood as monuments to a fallen age, while human ships carried the promise of a new era too, worlds that had never known the sound of human laughter or the sight of human tears. The galaxy belonged to humanity now, and humanity would never let it go.